Welcome back to another episode of Career Channels. We're glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about a program that is new to us here at CareerSource North Florida, and that is Florida Hires. And to discuss this program, we have Patrick Mahoney, the Director of Programs and Reentry at the Florida Department of Corrections. And we also have Lloyd Burke, who is one of our business service managers, as well as a former warden at the Florida Department of Corrections. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, Stephen.
Doing well. Thank you so much for the invitation.
We're glad to have you here. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but Florida Hires is a pre-release career readiness pathway to post-release employment for individuals returning from the prison system.
That is correct. It's a pre-released training program for individuals within 180 days of release from incarceration. They're provided with soft skills training along with technical training to prepare them for release. And it's also a comprehensive program where we partner with multiple community agencies, state agencies, and the business community to impact employment here in Florida.
Okay, so all of us have actually worked for the Department of Corrections. I did a few years, made up to sergeant, and parted ways. Lloyd, you've got
25 years.
25 years. That's a good bit of time. So you've probably seen a lot of individuals be released and be successful. So, Patrick, how many would you say you've seen over the year?
So I've been with the agency, July 1st will be 29 years. I started my career in 1994 as a probation officer in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I supervised caseloads in the community, those on supervision. I saw success way back then, and I see success virtually every day in the role I play with the Florida Department of Corrections now as the Director of Programs and Reentry. I like to say I probably have the best job in the agency because of the programs we implement, the transformations, the men and women that are incarcerated on probation that I see, their transformation in terms of success. And then with the Florida Hires program, there's been many released already since implementation that have been released to employment, and they're on the right trajectory for success and individuals we want to see in Florida.
Okay, so as I said earlier, this is a new program for us here at CareerSource North Florida. How long has Florida Hires actually been in effect?
Florida Hires has been in effect for a few years now. We are in several facilities. Florida Hires operates programs at Hamilton Correctional Institution, Baker Reentry Center, Polk Correctional Institution, Sago Palm Reentry Center down in Palm Beach County, St. Pete Community Release Center or Work Release Center, and Kissimmee Work Release Center. And then we have plans to expand for the women at Lowell Correctional Facility. So we have a pretty good, Florida Hires has a pretty good footprint here in Florida.
Okay, good. So, rough estimate, how many individuals would you guess have gone through the program?
Oh, there's been hundreds that have gone through the program, and many more in the pipeline. We're showing success. There's an appropriation that we get each year specific to this program. So the more successful Florida Hires becomes, the more data we'll have to go back and see whether we can receive additional funding to expand it even further. So it's a really good model in terms of preparing individuals for the traditional soft skills where they're learning communication skills, interviewing skills, resume writing, those sort of soft skills that many of us take advantage of. And then partnered with the technical skills aspect of it, where we can specifically target employers to come in for those areas of technical skills where they can come in and interview the individuals and hire them even before they're released.
Okay. So this one is going to be a question kind of for both of you. Would you be able to give any explanation or insight as to what the process might actually look like for one of those individuals?
Want me to take that one?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, here at CareerSource North Florida, we partnered with Hamilton Correctional Institution, and we have a classroom there. And there is actually an employer that's heavily involved. They're involved every day, where they go in and do job training, and they teach the participants what they need to do for an interview for their particular group. They've already conducted interviews. They identify the people that are there at Hamilton CI that are within the 180 days of release that they would like to employ when they are released. Our part as career development specialist, we actually go in the classroom and we have the participants come in. We go through some of the soft skills with them, but the main thing we're doing is CareerSource North Florida. Our specific part is teaching them how to navigate the internet, navigate the Employ Florida website so they can do job searches, helping them build their resumes, and helping them get ready for an interview process. The practice interview that's done with the company there can very well turn into employment, but not all those guys are going to be released in an area where this employer is found. And it helps them with any employer to get out and know how to do a professional interview, how to dress for the interview, really soft skills. A lot of us take for granted, but some of these guys are coming from a background where that wasn't taught. So we're picking that up. I think from a small time perspective at institutional level, in my experience, one of the things we did a great job at over the years is recognizing the lack of education in the system. And we have some great educational programs within our Florida Department of Corrections institutions. And we have met that part. I can't tell you how many in the youthful offender camps where I worked, GEDs and other technical education certificates that we have given out that will help with this process. But what we found was lacking that Florida Hires is really helping with in partnership with CareerSource North Florida is the part where you get an interview with an employer, you know how to approach that employer, you know what to tell them about your past, how to explain to them about your justice involvement. You don't have to go into details of what happened, but you can also tell them something new that I discovered since working here that we were doing. We're teaching them how to put their experience while incarcerated even on a resume, because not a lot of people know this, but a correctional facility is a small city. You have inside ground squads that do landscaping. You have food service. A lot of the food service departments now have ServSafe certification programs. We have vocational programs. So they were getting the job training. And the last part, which we'll cover some more that we started with this employer, is, they need an advocate to go out and talk to employers that are willing to hire someone who is justice impacted, because there for a long time, one of the greatest barriers that justice impacted persons had to success was getting employed. When you go to an employer and they want to know where you've been for the past 5-10 years, what your work history has been, that has always been a barrier. So one of the things we're also doing, and the Florida Hires program is great for, is going out to employers and asking them, would you be willing to give these guys a chance? And when they have that sound resume and they have that sound interview skill and they have those soft skills, it really increases their chance for success. So it's really a two-part approach where we're already doing the educational part so they can get to this stage. Now we're also working with them to teach them how to do these soft skills and reaching out to the employers to have them be more accepting of justice impacted persons.
Yeah, you make a good point there, Lloyd. There's word is getting out in the business community because there are more jobs openings in Florida than we have the unemployed. So there's a gap there. So the need for employment is great, and the business community is taking note of that. And the word of the Florida Department of Corrections and the number of individuals that we release each year is a tremendous workforce pipeline for them. So the word is getting out, and they're also experiencing that through hiring the formerly incarcerated. They're seeing that there's a better work ethic from the incarcerated population than there might be from the general population out in the community. So again, they're seeing that. We're getting more interest from the business community as we progress in the Florida Department of Corrections and workforce development and career and technical education. And I think it's just, and the Florida Hires program is such an awesome model that is so comprehensive of everything we're saying, where we're providing soft skills training, technical training. We partner with so many different entities because the Florida Department of Corrections can't do it alone. We need all those partners. We need CareerSource Florida. We need the local CareerSource workforce boards. We need the business community. We need the business associations. We have partnerships with the Florida Masonry and Education Foundation, also that's there at Hamilton Correctional Institution. And down in St. Pete, we partner with PERC, which is Pinellas Ex-Offender Reentry Coalition. So again, another community-based partner. And I think those partnerships is really what's making Florida Hires so successful.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I attended an event in Tallahassee at FSU, and they had one of the most nationally renowned economists there. And he was the guest speaker, and he spoke on that. That was the justice impacted statement, was that with employment like it is right now, if we don't start utilizing that job market, those employees, then we'll never meet our unemployment goals. We'll never meet the goals of employment and having workers. And they talked about that a lot. They had local from Tallahassee area, local employers that were there, and they were saying just what you said, that we were hesitant at first, but we talked to these people and we decided to be more accepting of the justice impacted community. And they've been some of the best employees that we have. And there were people in the room, they were just watching, that stood up and said, hey, my top guy, my top supervisor has a criminal background, best worker I've ever had.
Right.
So as that word gets out, because, we as professionals that are in this business are telling people that, they think we're just trying to sell them something. But if they have another business owner who stands up and they wave the flag, then the other business owners will listen to that more, and they'll be more willing to jump on board and consider these guys to meet their needs. Yeah,
I know of some businesses, not necessarily in Florida, but in other states, that will only hire ex-offenders because they have that experience with them and they're really, truly incredible employees. So they will only hire formerly incarcerated, which is, pretty cool, I think.
Yep. And having worked in the prison system myself, I was, like I said, I was a sergeant and officer. So I actually dealt with them one-on-one while they were in those jobs. And just like you guys are saying, those are some of the hardest working people I've ever seen. So the fact that now there's programs and businesses and groups willing to give them even more help to better themselves once they get out, that's tremendous.
Yeah. So what I'd like to, if we're talking to the business community here in North Florida, what I'd like to After all that, what I'd like to express to them is the Florida Department of Corrections receives about 24,000 individuals each year, and we release about 24,000 individuals each year. Now that pre-COVID numbers were even greater. Our population decreased a little bit, but we're seeing an uptick in the numbers. So those numbers will increase, I think, over the coming years. But that's a huge opportunity and a huge workforce pipeline for the business community to take advantage of.
It is, and it's not just in Florida, it's across the entire country.
That's right.
Because I know there's plenty of people that once released, they don't stay in the state. Some of them go to Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, the surrounding states, but even then some go further.
That's correct.
The fact that we can help those individuals better themselves, have the job skills necessary to reduce reincarceration, that's going to help out a lot for the businesses as well as the individuals.
All right. I do want to mention, going back to what Lloyd indicated about prisons being mini cities. It's absolutely true. They are mini cities, and all the individuals incarcerated have what we call job assignments: inside grounds, food service worker, outside grounds, housemen. So they're developing skills as they're working the compound. What we've done, the Florida Department of Corrections, over the last several years is we started building credentials behind those job assignments. So you're not just working inside grounds or outside grounds. Now you have credentials you need to meet, or steps you need to meet before you can advance to, a senior inside ground worker or something to that effect, or food service. And so they're building a resume as they're working. And what we're doing is we're capturing that, and we're putting it into their readiness portfolio as they're readying for release, and they go through the Compass 100 program.
Okay, so pretty much once they get close to their release date, you guys figure out what they need, what kind of job skills they already have, and what areas they might need more assistance in, correct?
That's correct. That's through the Compass 100 program. So on top of the Florida hires and the soft skills aspect of their training, all individuals incarcerated prior to release are mandated to go through what we call a 100-hour transition skills program, our Compass 100 program. And they're honing their skills: resume writing, communication skills, what else? Interviewing skills, a whole host of what we call soft skills, 100 hours worth. And we're documenting that, we're capturing that. They have they build a resume. So the resume's in their portfolio, and it's a folder that they can walk out of prison with a a pretty good portfolio of their previous few years they've been with us. What we're working on now is putting together their portfolio in an electronic manner. So they don't necessarily have to have this tangible folder walking out with. They'll have it electronically where they can share it with employers through email or what have you. So we're working on that as well.
That's great too, because a lot of employers, as we know now working here, a lot of employers are getting away from the physical hard copies of resumes and applications. They're all going digital now because it's easier to organize, easier to track, and it's almost easier to understand because you can pull bits of information as you need them.
That's right.
Well, as technology increases, even since I've retired the last couple of years, seeking employment, it's not like it used to be where you go into a brick and mortar and ask for an application. They tell you, find our website and log on there. And that's something that we do here with CareerSource. A lot of people don't have those computer skills. So just like with the incarcerated individuals, they don't have access to computers in there. They have tablets, but we go in there and show them how to operate the computer, how to learn what the basic commands are on the computer, how to go to the next page, how to, submit the information on the page and all that stuff. And with all the AI that's coming up now, when you put your stuff in the system like that, for most employers, they're pulling that stuff automatically. They're not manually going in there and getting that stuff anymore. So that's not just something that we're working with incarcerated individuals, because, correctional facilities are just a small picture of society.
Mhm.
So we deal with people every day that need those same skills that come in here. So to give them that while they're in there, so they're better prepared, because, the challenge with being released from incarceration is finding something quickly.
Yes.
Because, when you get out, you don't stop getting hungry. You don't stop needing clothing. You don't stop needing the basics. So the faster that we can get them employed, gainfully employed, the much higher success rate they have that they're not going to be reincarcerated.
Yeah, I like to say that we at the Florida Department of Corrections do wonderful, wonderful things in terms of programming, academic education, career and technical education. Our expanse, though, is what's challenging. We do very great in pockets where we have those resources, but we also have a number of facilities that don't have resources like your reentry centers or such. But we're getting better. One thing I think we don't do a very good job at, again, we're getting better and we understand it, but it is that transition from prison to community. And what Florida Hires does so well, why it's a really good model that really needs to be expanded, is that they have those connections pre-release and post-release. So the transition from prison to community is much better in the Florida Hires program, because recidivism shouldn't be a measure on the Florida Department of Corrections. It should be a measure on local communities. And what Florida Hires does is they have those partnerships in the communities, the business partnerships, the social service agencies, the faith community. They have those partnerships, and that's what's helping these men and women transition from prison to community much better, and their success is much greater because of those partnerships.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's actually kind of where CareerSource can really come in to help, is because we offer a lot of those same soft skill building programs and workshops, but we also assist with job searching, resume building, career exploration, trying to help people figure out where they want to go based on what skills they have, whether they want to go back to school to pursue a specific career. We offer scholarships for that. Let's see. We also assist businesses in finding those individuals looking for work. And that's one of the things that Lloyd's doing now as business development. So that teamwork from CareerSource, Florida Hires, and FDC makes for a really great team, and it sounds like it's going to be incredibly successful across the board.
Yeah, one of the things, part of my job here with CareerSource North Florida is going out and speaking to the employers, business owners, HR representatives. And that's one of the things that we talk about. Are you willing to hire justice involved persons? And a lot of them, at first, until you explain to them what that actually means and what these people are actually looking for, they may not be open to it. And of course, in the state of Florida, there are regulations against certain things. If you have certain felonies, or if you have a criminal background that precludes you from being employed in those. But that's one of the things we're doing too, and explaining things like the federal bonding program. Whereas if you have someone that was recently incarcerated and the employer's insurance won't cover them, they can get their own insurance for the initial employment period, so that they're not having to worry about that part.
And the tax credits they get for hiring the formerly incarcerated. Many businesses don't even know about those options.
And that's part of our job, is we're educating the employers about those things too. because it's a win-win situation. Here you get an employee and you get money back. You're probably going to hire that person anyway. A couple of local businesses that I know that are willing to hire justice impacted persons, I told them about it and they're like, well, I don't know why I wouldn't do that, because I'm already employing them. I'm already hiring them. Why would I take advantage of that program? So that's part of the education of the businesses as well.
Sure is.
So, I mean, that's just one more way to help them succeed, is getting the businesses to understand that by hiring those individuals, it helps them as well. So that's, I'm going to say it again, it's fantastic. It's incredible the way these programs are all working together. So,
And you know, we're getting better at it, the Department of Corrections. But many of these individuals that are releasing are coming out with skills, with credentials, particularly the Florida Hires students that are going through. They're all releasing with completion in technical training, and they're receiving multiple industry recognized credentials.
oh wow, I didn't know that part.
They are.
So that makes it even easier for when they come into our offices to job search, because then we can help them put all of that information into their employee Florida profile. And when using our services, individuals are paired with a trained and certified workforce professional whose sole job is to help them develop an action plan, specific needs, and help them get hired. So,
right. Take Hamilton Correctional as an example. The students in the Florida Hires program, they're all getting OSHA 10 certifications. They're getting NCCER core construction type certifications, along with construction site safety and first aid certifications. So they're coming out with multiple industry recognized certifications just at the Hamilton program. And then when you factor in the other sites where we're doing CDL training down at Kissimmee Community Release Center, they're walking out with the soft skills training along with a Class B commercial driver's license. So they're employment ready day one that they're released, because they have the training, they have the license to drive, and we know that Florida needs commercial driver's license drivers.
yes, they do, because that's actually one of the big things that CareerSource Florida has been working on, is partnering with the local schools and companies to either help individuals get their CDL or help the businesses find those that have it and get them hired.
That's right.
Because that's one of our, I believe it's our top 5 industries, is trucking here in Florida. So
I think the construction field is up in the top 5 as well. So
it's very possible.
And down at Polk Correctional, we have the heavy equipment operator program within the Florida Hires program. So they're receiving heavy equipment operator certifications where they're ready day one to go out on a job site and start operating a heavy equipment, a backhoe, a forklift operator. There's a whole gamut of heavy equipment operator certifications that they're being trained on at Polk. So they're ready day one to step on a construction site for employment.
Yeah, that's great, because a lot of places require those certifications before they will hire someone. Now, there are some businesses that will put someone through the training themselves so they know for a fact that they have the correct certification, but having one before you get into the job is never a bad idea.
Right.
So is there any advice that you guys might give to someone who is justice impacted to either help them work their way through the Florida Hires program, or even advice for once they get out?
Absolutely. During my time with the department, when I was assigned oversight of work release centers, I used to talk to the guys a lot and then tell them that it's not an automatic thing. You're not going to get the very first thing you go for. You're not going to achieve your ultimate dream immediately. There are steps you have to go through. There's going to be difficulties. There's going to be things you have to be prepared for. Rejection isn't easy for anyone, but when you're released, whether it's from incarceration or even supervision, and you're going through this whole process, you've got to expect to have to keep trying. You have to keep going through the motions until you achieve your goal. Nobody's going to do it for you. You can't expect anyone just to hand it to you. You have to be tenacious in your pursuit of success. And I used to tell those guys all the time that, you achieve a goal in small steps. You're not going to, a lot of those guys, they have big dreams, and that's good. You need a long-term goal. I'm going to use truck driving for an example, because we had the simulators in Region 1 at one time where they were doing the CDL, the in-class portion, along with the driving simulators. And I tell those guys, they wanted to get out and own their own truck and go in business for themselves. And something you'd have to explain is, well, you might have to go to work with somebody that already owns a truck, that already has a route, that's going to pay you mileage and by the load. And then if you save that money, and that's another thing we were working on with them, was budget, you can afford eventually to get your own truck. And then you might get a second truck and an employee. But first you have to go through those first steps. Something that amazed me was that there's a lot of, we want to categorize everybody in the same category, but they're really not. But the ones that have the most barriers to successful employment post incarcerations are usually the ones that haven't really worked outside of their criminal activities. They haven't had a regular job with somebody telling them what to do, what time to be there, and these sort of things. Those are the guys that we really are concentrating on and trying to help, are those that haven't seen those skills for themselves. It's brand new to them. So they don't understand that just because I tell you this is how you dress and this is how you explain this and this is your great resume, that they don't walk in the first day and hand it to the very first person and bam, you're successful. You have to keep your eyes on the prize and marching towards the goal, because if you give up, that's when failure creeps in.
And I'm sure that there are the occasional cases where someone gets out, they've got a good support system, whether it be family, the faith-based organizations, or even the first employer they go to. I'm sure that there are those cases where success, the beginnings of success, happen right out the gate.
Of course, there are guys with and females too with great release plans. The release officers work with them a lot too for their local communities to try to find them employment before they get out. But there's only so much you can do from an office on a phone prior to release when they get out. And we have a list of employers throughout the state that will hire justice impacted persons, but that doesn't mean that where they're going to be released is going to be one of those employers. I think that one of the greatest programs that the department has is work release. The inmates that are eligible, which not all of them are eligible to go to work release, but the ones that are eligible, when you get in there, it's called work release for a reason. You have to become employed. And where that work release is, they already have relationships with the businesses in that community that will employ these guys. And there are some of those who at the end of their incarceration or their sentence structure or their supervision, they stay on with that employer. And those guys are usually very successful because they've already established themselves with that company and they're going to stay in that area and they can keep working there. But that's not always the case. But at least with that program, they have a job reference that somebody can call and say, hey, man, I just got this thing and this guy's record looks like this, but he says he worked for you for 2 years. And when they call, they get a positive referral from that other employer. And that's amazing for them to have in order to keep going through gainful employment.
I like to say work release is the original reentry program. It started many decades ago, and it's designed to as a step down when you're getting ready to be released from incarceration, and you've met the security aspects and the rules of your incarceration, and you step down, and we're ready to get you employed and get you connected to the community and get you closer to home and closer to family, and get you a job, and you can start saving money. And when your release day comes, you're pretty well prepared for success. But to go back and provide some advice, as you indicated earlier, Lloyd is correct. What I'd like to say to the incarcerated is work hard, be honest, and be humble. Don't expect to be released and the next week own your own business. Work for somebody in the field you want to work in. Learn the field. Owning a business is much different than operating within that business. It requires a whole new level of skills and skill sets to own and operate a business. So don't think you're going to go out and own and operate your own business, within the first week of release. Be humble, learn your trade. We've all done it. We all started from at the bottom and worked our way up. That's part of it. And learn the business and learn the business aspects of the trade. And then one day you'll be ready to own a business. I know of many individuals that were incarcerated with us and went out and worked, and now they're very, very successful business owners in the trade that they were trained in. But they didn't expect to go out and own a business on day one. But again, have the goals and have those dreams. We all do. And work hard, be honest, and stay humble. It's my advice.
Yeah, bringing it back around to the advice. Something else too, talking about owning your own business that we both touched on, is the legal aspect of it. I did used to tell those guys all the time. I'd get them to raise their hands, say, "Hey, how many of you guys go to the law library and do research on your case?" And they all raised their hand. Like everybody raised their hand. I said, "All right, all of you that want to own a business, how many of you have been in the law library and looked up information on LLCs? Who knows the difference between a sole ownership and a limited liability corporation?" Those are the things. If you want to own your own business, it's not about, hey, I can drive a truck so I can have my own business. There's a lot more to it than that. So learning the legal aspects of things is another key component.
So to kind of recap everything we've talked about today, Florida Hires helps those individuals that may have barriers to employment, such as incarceration, gain skills, knowledge, and abilities for post-release employment. We also want to say, just like you both just mentioned, don't expect to be long-term goal successful right out of the gate. Be willing to work for it. Be willing to put in the effort. That's the big part, is effort. Even while you're still inside the gates, put in the effort, go through the classes, go through the programs, and show that you actually want to better yourself and succeed. And once any of those individuals are released, CareerSource can help guide you to a specific career path that you want, whether it be through education, whether it be through gainful employment, whether it be through soft skills enhancement, or even interview based, because CareerSource Florida does offer mock interviews. A lot of people aren't aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything either of you would like to say before we close out?
No.
I just want to say, I'm a big fan of the Florida Hires program. It took a little while to get it up and operating and developing the model that we wanted and we knew was going to be successful, and then operating within that model. I think it's a tremendous successful model that can be expanded and replicated in many jurisdictions around our state and in many facilities around our state. Again, part of that success is the partnerships, the multiple partnerships that the Florida Hires program encapsulates. With CareerSource Florida, the local CareerSource North Florida, in your case, the business community, the business associations, just everybody involved in this model makes the model successful and makes the individual being released and completing Florida Hires program successful.
All right. Well, as always, for more information, you can either call, click, or come into any of our offices and speak with any one of our service members. And thank you all for joining us. And remember, you can find your career path here with Career Channels.